Welcome, mamas. It's session 3, and today, same cadence as always. We're going to just review and kind of hone in on how you can specifically parent now that you understand your child's core desire, their core struggle, their core fear, and hopefully their stress type. You've done that work for all of your children, and so we want to talk a little bit about how to have a motherhood that you're aligned with and love, and how that might look different for each child. So I'm going to use a couple of my own kids as an example, and we'll go from there. So I have 4 children, and 2 of them are fight, 1 of them is flight, and 1 of them is fawn. So I don't have a freezer, but I do have the other 3. So I just want to talk a minute about a fawner. So my particular fawn child, his core desire is to have approval and peace in the relationship. And so he is my one and only child that will apologize immediately upon any sort of correction. I'm sorry, mom, I'm sorry. And the other ones, especially the fighters, will really dig in and refuse to apologize. And so his core desire is connection and peace in the relationship. And so as his mother, who happens to be a stress type also as a fighter, I have had to learn how not to pick a fight with him because it makes it so much worse. It's very easy to dominate over him, and I have absolutely taken advantage of that sometimes. And understanding his stress type has helped me be the best mother for him that I can be. So as a tangible example of that, when he wants peace, he is not one that I put in timeout very often. So instead, he's one that I'm going to try to physically connect with when he's upset, so that he knows that there's peace in that relationship. And so if I'm giving him a discipline or a hard talk, he still has to know that the root is very peaceful in that relationship. His core fear ultimately is disappointing others. And so he is very nervous when he does something wrong. He's afraid he's going to get in trouble. My dad coaches him in basketball, and my dad's just kind of a yeller, like as a coach. Like he's just not
intensity.
He doesn't ever tell anybody they're scumbag. He's just like, oh, come on, get the rebound, type thing. And my father has had a really hard time with that. And so he actually came up to me once and he was like, I don't want to play anymore. And I said, but you love basketball. Why don't you want to play? And he goes, because Papa's gets so mad at me. Well, my dad wasn't mad, but that's how my father was interpreting it, because he wasn't seeing the peace. And so I helped that particular child advocate for himself and talk about to my dad, like, hey, I need you to lay off or find the good. Versus my fighter, if he comes to me and he's like, oh, Baba was so mad at me, my response to him as somebody whose stress type is fight is going to be like, yeah, he's encouraging you to do better, like, get better, right? And so those 2 responses, like one of them I helped my child advocate for himself, the other I reminded him that he could handle it, because they're different. So because he's a people pleaser, we spend a lot of time trying to understand the world around him and how important he is and how his opinion matters. Versus my fighter, we spend a lot of time trying to help him read a room and take some context clues, because he is in it to win it. And so he walks into a room to fight, versus this person, the fawner, walks into the room to please. Well, of course I'm going to parent them differently. That's a totally different game. They're playing different games. Mm-hmm. And we have to remember that that's true in every space that we walk into, is that we're all essentially playing different games, and this is why we want to know our kids so well. So anyway, one of the things that I do with my fighters is that I will put them in timeout and I will send them away, because they're not nervous about feeling rejected by me. In fact, the fighters, their core desire is like immediate resolution or control, and in order to reach that resolution, they need to take a breath. And so I will give them that breath, right? I will give you that space. You're not afraid of being rejected by me. And then I will come to your room and we will solve it right in that moment, because that's something that they're able to do. The other one I wanted to talk about was my flighter, and how I've parented her differently than the fighter. And so one of the comparisons I wanted to make for you was just about grades. So somebody who has a stress type of a flighter and a core desire to be good is that they are so hard on themselves. In fact, they almost don't need a lot of parenting. They need way more encouragement, because they're ahead of you and already frustrated with themselves. And so she doesn't get straight A's. She's just beside herself. She thinks that she's totally failed. And so if she comes home with a C on a test, I'm going to give her a big hug and a big kiss and say, I love you. And I think that you tried your hardest. And I see you in that. Because otherwise, somebody whose stress type is flight, she wants to escape. Like she feels trapped. And I never want my children to feel trapped or to feel stuck, because I know as their parent, I can handle it for them. And so she's not trapped by a C. I care. So I won't use the language like, well, I don't care, because it's important to her that I do care, right? Because perfectionism, she wants me to acknowledge that. But it doesn't make me love her anymore or love her any less. And one of her core desires as somebody who wants to be good is to have freedom from pressure. And so I just remove that barrier right away. So I hope that you can really embrace knowing your child in these ways and adjust your parenting to your child. So know your child, love your motherhood, align your values. I'll pass it off to you.
Okay, so here are my 2 mantras for the week. One is teach and demonstrate to your children that you are in it to win it with them. You are on their team, and you are going to do everything you can to help them progress in the ways that they need to progress, and that there is nothing too big for you to not get involved and help them figure out how to handle it. The example that I gave was about sextortion, and there have been some really fabulous, particularly young men, who got coerced basically into taking pictures that compromised them and their private places. And then when they posted that, they were extorted. People wanted money. Obviously they thought they were talking to a teenage girl. Then they found out that they weren't. And I've heard stories, and you probably have too, of young men, great young men, 17 years old, who commit suicide because they don't know how to get out from under it. So this is the example I'm trying to get to draw home for you. Is there's an example of a young man who did go to his parents and said, I did this really stupid thing. Now they want money from me. And the parents called the school and said, you need to know that this is going to be posted. It's not us posting it. And it's going to be very embarrassing to my son, but he's ready to handle that. And they did. It's because he wouldn't send money, they did post his compromising pictures. Now, I think with AI coming into, being big, I think you could always say, oh, that's not really me, it's AI. So that's one way to get out from under it. But the other thing that goes along with this is teach your child that if they make wise choices, life will go better for them and they'll have less regret. Not that we're not going to make mistakes, we do, and they do, and I still do. So it's not like you're trying to get them to be mistakeless. It's just that they need to think through what they're doing so that when they do it, they realize. And I also think that it's important to warn them about all kinds of predators that are out there. And I think you start that very young. I talk to my kids very young about people wanting to steal them. And what I would say is, I don't want anybody to steal you because I love you and I want you to be in my family. And if they steal you, then you'll be in their family. It wasn't scary. When they were really little, I wasn't trying to scare them. I was trying to help them understand the boundaries and why it was important for them to not go to the car of a stranger or take candy or go help somebody, find their dog or those things. And I would say those things to them regularly. And as they got older, I would quiz them. Do you know what to do if you're in this situation? And half the time they didn't remember. And so that's why you go over the material as much as you do. But the point of that is that your child needs to know that you are on their team and that you are going to get them through whatever it is they have to go through, so that there's nothing that can overwhelm them and make them feel like it's unsolvable. You hear about suicides too of young people who've been bullied terribly at school. You want your child to tell you that so that you can help them fix it. And so you can go to the school and you can advocate for them, or you can pull them out of whatever situation is toxic. So it's really, really important that they know they can trust you in that. And then the next one I wanted to share was, and we talked a little bit about this in the session prior, is underreacting. So it's, if it's a really big thing and you need to react strongly to it, okay, there are times when that happens. But in general, when they tell you something, they're kind of testing to see how you're going to react to it. And so you want your reaction to be measured. You want to be like, okay, well, tell me more about that, rather than, oh, really? It's just really important that they know that you're going to be able to absorb anything that they are going to tell you, and that at that moment you're not going to do some kind of a disciplinary thing, or how dare you, or I can't believe you did that, or any of those shaming statements that we'll talk about next week. It's just that idea that it's the same thing as a therapist. I had to learn to do that. People would tell me all kinds of things, and I had to not have a look of disgust on my face or whatever emotion I might be feeling, because that was gonna trigger them in a negative way. So that's kind of what I'm talking about here, is being able to underreact. The other part of underreacting is that your job is to kind of de-escalate the situation. You're not going to join, if everybody's yelling about something, you're not going to join in on the yelling. You're going to try to have that measured response, and that might de-escalate the situation, especially if your children are fighting. If you get in and raise your voice to the level that they've raised their voice, now you've got 3 of you in a fight that's really dysfunctional. So you want to come in and go, okay, wait, guys, slow down here. Let's figure out what happened. You first, tell me what happened. Okay, now you tell me what happened. Okay, well, this is what I'm hearing, this is what I'm seeing, and this is what I want you to do now. So that mediator, thank you. I think that's really important. And then now I'm going to go on to the 2 things that the practical things that helps you love your motherhood. And the first one is give words of blessing regularly. Get in their little face and say, I am so glad that you are mine. One of the things that I read really early on when I was a parent, and I was reading books all the time about how to be a therapist, really, basically. And this book talked about how we frequently get down at their little level and looking them in the eye when we're frustrated with them, trying to correct them, trying to make sure that they hear us. I'm not saying that's wrong. Sometimes that's necessary, but I think we need to balance it with getting down in their little level and looking in their eyes and saying, I love you so much, and I'm so glad you're mine. Of all the little children that God could have given me, I'm so thankful that he gave me you. It's so important that they feel that sense of blessing from you, that they know that you're pleased with them, that they are the one that you want to raise. And that's in any situation. And that's even if your children are adopted or whatever. It's just really important that they feel that blessing. And then the companion to that is, hold on, let me find it. The idea that they are always welcomed and they are always going to be valued in your home, that they belong with you, and that they're part of your group. And that's one of the really cool things about a family. You're a group, and when you get together, there's a belonging there that exists because you're a member of that family. And we can do that in like ladies' Bible studies. We even can do it in the church setting where we're like part of the church and we're happy that we're part of that church. I think belonging is just such a core need that we have. And so you want them to know that they're never on the outskirts. And especially if you're in any kind of a situation, like I know a couple of you are divorced and single parenting, you may remarry at some point. My youngest daughter married a guy with 2 kids. And it's very important to those 2 kids, whether they know it or not, they're little, they're 3 and 5, that she lets them know that they're part of the group, that they're part of the household, even though they're only there 50% of the time. And so those of you who are single parents, you may remarry, and they might have children and you have children, and that whole blended thing is really hard. I'm not going to get all into that right now, but that idea that that you belong as part of the group.
Yeah. We call ourselves Team Weiss. And so we'll say like, okay, well, you know, Team Thornton might do it this way, but Team Weiss does it this way. And we use that a lot. And a lot of blended families will create a team name. They'll have like a, because it is, belonging is really important. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right.